I came from a personal care background and somebody told me that, oh, you're going to be the brand manager on Harpic. And I'm like, no, this is not happening. A toilet cleaner brand. And I dare say that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I think you would learn it pretty quickly. If you have a bad product and you have a great marketing, that's a recipe for disaster. For me, it doesn't matter if you are the most intelligent person on the campus at that time or not. But if you're sharp enough to pick up things that you don't know and are able to work around with that, I think that's what I kind of look forward to.
So as we were talking about the property that we're here for inside Reckitt's leadership, and for the same we have one of the most esteemed leaders from Reckitt, Mr. Saurabh Jain, who is the Regional Marketing Director for the South of Asia. So for the conversation today, I'd like to invite him on stage. So give him a huge round of applause and let's get the show started. First of all, thanks a lot, Saurabh, for being here and agreeing to do this. So, before we talk about something else, I would just like to take it from the top. So, why don't you just tell us about your early career days and your graduation days when you were pursuing economic honors from Nasi Monji? How did you actually decide that you wanted to go for an MBA after that?
Let me not even start with the undergrad. I think the first salary I ever earned or first income I ever earned was actually being an umpire on a cricket field in Eden Gardens. So I started my career playing for Rajasthan Club, which is the club owned by Jagmohan Dalmia in Bengal. And I, of course, like every other person in the 80s growing up, wanted to be a cricketer. There was no IPL. There was no multiple platforms for people to kind of come across. There were only a squad of 16, 18 who would make it to the national team and maybe another 18 that would make it to the state teams. So the opportunity areas were a lot lesser, but then very honestly, I think the talent gap was big. I was smart enough to realize that this is not where the bread's going to come in from. And at that time, I started looking at like what are the next big opportunities and stuff. Luckily for me, I was never bad in studies. So I passed out in commerce from in commerce and economics from La Martine, Calcutta. Are there people from Calcutta in the room? Yeah, okay, plenty of them. So I'm a Marwadi from Calcutta. So I passed out from La Martine, Calcutta there, did my accountancy and economics from there. Then went to St. Xavier's Economics Honours, St. Xavier's, and I did Economics Honours there in Calcutta. Post which I went to Narsi Monji and I did my MBA in marketing from there, right, and minors in finance. So I think that's been the bit. I don't think I was ever fully clear till that particular time. I mean, of course, my first dream and first aim was to be a cricketer, which like I said, I realized pretty on it wasn't really happening. MBA happened a bit by accident. Come to think of it, till maybe 4 years back, I was the only postgraduate in my family, and I was definitely the first graduate in my family. So there was no one really, somebody that I could look forward to in terms of telling me or somebody's career or path that I would emanate. So everything for me was borrowed from friends. Like there was a friend whose brother did an MBA and he was like, okay, let's do economics honors and then we'll give our cat, etc. And then we'll go here and then we'll take a job and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that as well.
And as you were talking about the MBA journey, so how does someone get the clarity of the specialization that they want to choose? And especially when you are a fresher who's coming right out of your undergrad, how do you attain this clarity?
I don't like, and what I really love about our education system is that you really need to choose maybe in the second year, right? Till first year, you're really out there exploring everything that's kind of there, which thrown at you. You can look at all the subjects, you can look at all the specializations and have a mental map of does it really align with what I am as a person and does it excite me to build a career in it? I think those are the two questions. If you can answer for yourself, it's great. I mean, it would have been almost criminal to say that, you join the campus on the first day, you're told you choose marketing, finance, operations, HR, etc. When you really, really fresh out of campus, you have no idea of what these fields are. Maybe some borrowed concepts like I had. But that's where I think invest your first year is my advice, is just make sure that you immerse yourself to really understand that if in the next 15, 20 years of your career, before you reach general management, I think is there a function that you're going to dedicate your 15 years of life to, it better align with something that gets you excited about. and it aligns with you are as a person. For me, it was pretty much the same. I mean, like I said, I had a concept in mind. Again, being a Marwadi, done my economics, did my summers with BNP Paribas in private banking. I was fairly certain of the fact that all my background aligns a lot with finance, and I thought I'm going to make a career in it. I think, but in many ways or the others, I think my summer program at BNP was like a bit of an eye opener for me as well, and I'm like, maybe this is not what's going to keep me excited for a longer term. While I really love it, and I love the stock markets, I love equity analysis, etc., and stuff like that, but I like this more as a hobby, and I don't really like this as a profession. And I think, and that's where I made that particular juncture. And I let the experiences come in, and I ended up doing the specialization in marketing, but I also kept my other leg on finance by doing a minors in it, so that if I had to course correct at some stage, I would. But I'm happy I didn't have to.
So moving from the B school or the campus to then your career. So what was your first job after B school, and what did it make you feel about your choice of career? I mean, were you happy with the choice that you made?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really complain. But I'll give you an anecdote around it, though. I mean, I like I said, I mean, I did my B school from Narsi Monji. I got placed day zero with ITC, and many of you who would have studied possibly in, or maybe you will study. I think there was a very interesting case study around eChopal. Are you guys familiar with eChopal? So eChopal was a very innovative, and I'm talking now 2006. It was a very innovative concept coming up, digitize the rural, agriculture industry in many ways. Farmers were very much marginalized. They were not really getting the real value for their produce, and the mandi system was not really made in a manner in which it was in favor of the farmers. So that's where the disruption really lied. I'm talking 2006, where there was no cell phone, or the cell phone was just around there, maybe coming in at that particular time. An outgoing call was 16 rupees, an incoming call was 8 rupees. So those were the times when people, if somebody was call you up, you would actually cancel the call as well, right? I mean, missed calls used to be a signal. So I'm talking that particular time. It sounded very fascinating, to somebody who was just really keen to kind of learn and understand and maybe venture into a new path. I think that sounded very interesting. And I dare say, I mean, I've been in rural hinterlands. We had like a part of our management trainee program was we had to stay in villages. And when I say villages, it's a village, right? I mean, in absolute sense, 2 weeks, in a particular village. There were no toilets in the village at that particular time. So, I mean, you talk about things that are, that we take for granted, those things. And I think those were such an eye-opener. And I think 18 years later, when I sit in and as a marketing director now with Reckitt and working for the Indian consumers, the ability to really identify how rural India is so different from urban India. And I really thank for my early stage career in ITC as well, where I got this particular opportunity, which I don't think classically you get as much. But I was really happy with the choices, right? And as for the first 4 years, I think I had some amazing stints. I mean, being a vegetarian, I was doing shrimp farming. And it was a dreaded experience when the farmers had to come in and they would say, okay, you need to put the shrimp on your hand and tell me whether it's A grade or B grade. And I'm like, you put it on your hand and I'll tell you whether it's A grade or not. So, I mean, those things. And I think it was fun. And I was doing, with no background, literally no background. I was doing trading, I was involved a bit in trading. I was involved a bit in real estate, where we were just going in and looking at plots and assuming whether it's good to put up its retail store or not. I mean, it was really fascinating. I was doing SAP implementation projects. I was doing a warehousing project, etc. So I think first 4 years I had it just seemed like I'm an entrepreneur and doing this. But but very honestly, after fourth year, I was like, oh, where is this career going? I mean, I'm getting a variety of experiences, but really I'm not really specializing into it. And how would these experiences count? But I had faith that I have learned all the way, and thereby at some stage in my career it would come back and help. And I think that's practically what it did. But at fourth year, I think I put my hand up and said I wanted to move to the FMCG business, and that's where I moved to the sales business and then to the marketing, and then kind of came to Reckitt with the marketing experience as well.
Saurabh, you've had nearly 2 decades of experience in the industry. How have the consumer dynamics changed in the recent years? I mean, what would you say are the current trends, in marketing and branding in the FMCG sector?
No, it's massive. I think consumers have evolved. They've changed. I think the first trend I would talk about is that we're no longer living in a very homogeneous society anymore, right? I mean, come to think, 18 years back, there used to be one or two brands that would dominate. Almost all the consumers wanted the same kind of benefit out of each of the categories. Now, the world that you're staying in is very, very fragmented. There are need states which are far more evolved. I mean, come to think of the evolution of Mama Earth, right? Detergents as a category dominated by 6 brands. Uh, Pretty much everyone offering the same benefit. Here comes a player which really identifies the need for safety, the need for an enhanced safety-led efficacy for babies. And I think they've done a phenomenal job in building the brand that they have. So increasingly, while that's one category, but if you look at category by category, I think there's increased level of fragmentation, and all these consumers are also very different. And thereby, is the evolution of digital as a media, where you don't like conventionally, 2006 when I started off. I mean, you would do a TV ad. It used to be a one-to-many kind of a relationship. I throw content at you. That's it. And I will not get a reaction from you. I'll not know how you feel about my content and stuff. If my sale grows, I know it's done. But now with the medium changes, I think there's an ability to actually not just do blanket bombing here, but I can identify among all the people sitting in here who are more likely going to be my consumers, sharpshoot and target through my advertisements on them. Maybe I would change the messaging around if I know you a little better with respect to what your passion points is and how does that align with the product that I'm kind of offering. And I think it allows that. But the beauty of this is that now I wait for your reaction as well. You're going to tell me whether you liked it or not. When you put a like out there, when you put a comment out there, I know how it's resonating or not resonating.
So, Saurabh, Reckitt is an organization which has a lot of brands that come up whenever we speak about brand loyalty, right? You talk about Dettol, you talk about Harpic, you talk about Lysol, now Durex, and there are many more, the plethora of brands that we have. How difficult is it to maintain that sort of a brand loyalty in such a competitive market, and then how do you actually go about it?
I think come to think of Reckitt, I think one of the things that I find fascinating, and for the last 10 and a half years that I've been actually a part of Reckitt is how beautiful our portfolio actually aligns to the service that we are providing to the consumers, right? We're not into the business of just, let's say, beauty, cosmetic, or detergents, etc. and stuff. I mean, you look at each of our brands, we are also serving a higher value benefit, right? You talk about Dettol, you talk about Lysol, you're actually talking about keeping your loved one illness free, breaking the chain of infection, so as to speak. And you think of events, terrible events like COVID, etc. I mean, how do these products actually come in handy to actually not just sell to consumers and provide a benefit, but also be like that savior, be that ally that you really need in your lives to kind of combat and face this world. Think of Mortein as a brand again. I mean, you're really fighting mosquito-borne diseases, the likes of malaria, dengue, etc. And then finding ways in which, like, every time you sell a product, you're really happy because you're actually impacting at some other levels. Think of Harpic and the work that the brand's done in this country for the last 10 and a half years. I mean, it used to be a taboo. I mean, you wouldn't really, 10 years back when I started on Harpic, I think, first time it was offered to me, I was like, what? I came from a personal care background, and somebody told me that, oh, you're going to be the brand manager on Harpic. And I'm like, no, this is not happening. A toilet cleaner brand. And I dare say that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. 10 years back, I think many of you would know the journey that India has been on, where we eradicated open defecation in India. When the Prime Minister went on stage and he said he's serious about eradicating open defecation. And, and to talk of it, almost 10 crore toilets being built in India. You've seen phenomenal growth in this particular category. And I think I've been fortunate enough to actually be a part of Harpic during that particular transition as well, right? So things have changed. I don't think there is still a taboo. I think you can really talk about this in a big way. But brands like this are very, very meaningful. And I think these are the right ways to kind of create it. We did partake, as far as Harpic is concerned, in terms of building the toilet infrastructure. We still, I don't know if you guys have seen Mission Swachhta and Pani, Dettol Banega Swachh India. So those are programs, those are really behavioral change programs, because see, it's very easy to sell a product. I mean, while I say it's easy, it's not really easy, but but it is relatively easy to sell a product. But it's very difficult to change consumer behavior and especially reinforce positive behavior. And I think brands that are able to do that are the ones that actually earn consumers' trust. I mean, imagine a child who actually learns hand washing and the benefit of hand washing using a Dettol soap, right? Where Dettols come in and taught that particular person, or the kid here is like, every time you eat your food, just make sure you wash your hand, kill all the germs, so that anything that goes in your mouth is healthy, right? And that message kind of stays with you, and the brand kind of builds on you. I mean, people who've just newly built toilet in rural India, and I mean, they didn't know how to clean it. I mean, Harpik's been on the journey to really educate them and say just detergents may not be enough, because you were defecating out in the open, it's fine. Now you got the toilet back home. Now when the toilet is out there 5 feet, 10 feet away from where you are or where your kitchen is, you better keep it clean and disinfected. And I think that's the role that the brand's kind of playing in rural today. The other factor that I really, really strongly believe that kind of contributes a lot to the brand loyalty is also the product, right? I mean, at the end of it, I mean, we have an obsession with product superiority at Reckitt. I think we just make sure that every product and every category that we go into, we are definitely the best out there. We test our products very rigorously against competition, and we make sure, because in the end, I mean, you may through marketing get consumers in, you may get consumers in, the early adopters come in through distribution, etc. as well. But what's going to win the loyalty is the real benefit that you're solving for them once the product's kind of brought in and consumed. And I think you can't find a replacement for that. And I think you would learn it pretty quickly. If you have a bad product and you have a great marketing, that's a recipe for disaster. Like nothing would kill a story faster than a good marketing on a bad product. So I think that's the second thing to kind of do. The third thing, I think, from a Reckitt example perspective is build categories. I mean, we've done a phenomenal job in all the brands that you spoke about, where we've actually built the category, where we've got the consumer base and done that, right? I mean, think of Dettol, think of Lysol, the first floor cleaner in India, the only disinfectant floor cleaner at that particular time. Harpic, the first and the number one toilet cleaner again here. Mortein, it started its journey like that as well. Again, all these categories are the ones that we've actually built. Colin, another brand, I mean, the glass cleaner, you don't know the second brand in the category. So it always is a lot better for you to create those categories, and so that you can rule the roost. Of course, you will have to fend competition as the category kind of grows big, but at least from a consumer and the resonance perspective, I think you do a better job there.
Saurabh, next question, and more than a question, it's kind of a cheat sheet for you guys, so do listen this out. We will be going to a lot of campuses to hire talent, right, as summer trainees and then as management trainees. What do you look for in a student when you are interviewing one?
I surely don't look at purely their cats for sure. So I mean, just to kind of rule that out of the way. I think one of the things that I'm really, really keen is I look for how much fight is there in the person, right? And by that I mean, like, how much have you really invested in terms of picking up varied experience? Do you have diversity in your thinking? Do you have diversity in the way you build your resume, etc.? And I think I really like that about a candidate. The second thing, like I've been harping a bit in today's session, is I really want more people who are open. I look for openness, people who are coming in for experiences, who have a bit of a learning mindset, right? I think that's super important. For me, it doesn't matter if you are the most intelligent person on the campus at that time or not. But if you're sharp enough to pick up things that you don't know and are able to work around with that, I think that's what I kind of look forward to. You don't have to be the merit holder. You don't have to be the person who knows everything, but just show me the ability that you have the willingness to learn. You're sharp enough to actually pick from your experiences and are able to demonstrate your learning agility, I think, is the critical one.
And kind of a follow-up question, what do you fathom Reckitt culture is? When and why should someone join Reckitt?
Well, I think one of the things is that we are a very ownership driven culture. And let me qualify this. I mean, these are not just words. I mean, you really, in any role in Reckitt, it would be a very meaningful role. You would be doing something of tremendous value to the company. The level of rigor will be reasonably medium to high there. So you will have an impact, right? And when I say that, and that's the reason I think, your roles would matter, right? It's not that you could be there fancy for 2 3 years, etc. and stuff, and not achieve anything. So in the end, I think you'd be really proud of the achievement that you would have. uh, and one of the ways in which we demonstrate is that you will have a voice, right? So we're not really a very hierarchical organization. An ABM in the room to a marketing director, they have the same voice in the room, right? So you're free to speak. You have the right to speak, right? And it's just that you have to put the data, you have to put the impact to be able to convert this right and an opportunity to speak into a right to be heard, right? Which basically means that you have to get people interested in understanding your point of view and stuff, and that's where the onus really lies. So I would put it out this particular way, that all the roles are very meaningful, very impactful. You will be doing something which only one person assigned to that particular role could be doing. We more often like people who have a point of view than people who don't have a point of view, right? So that's the other thing that you would see in Reckitt is like, it doesn't matter. We're not hierarchical, we're not bureaucratic. You need to have a point of view. We may argue a bit over the point of view. And if you have data and proof points to convince us, we'll walk away with anything anyone has to say. A better idea and a better decision would walk away on that particular thing.
Great. So I have one final question, but before that, I'll just break for the last Q&A. So if there are any questions that are yet unanswered.
So you said you wanted to penetrate a new market for Harpic. So that would be a rural market, right? And considering rural India now has internet, higher percentage of internet, what would be the difference in marketing strategies for urban and rural, considering you can reach them by digital media and digital channels?
So let me answer that for you. I mean, see, again, I think first and foremost, Harpic comes into place if there's a toilet at home. Like in the last 10 years, I think there's enough toilet in rural India. So I dare say almost every household in India now has it, either at a community level or at a household level. Largely everything is at a household level, very few at a community. So the market really exists. The motivators are very different, right? When it comes to urban and stuff, and thereby the advertising and the insight that which you work is different from the insight that could work in rural. And I'll give you a few case points. And I think one of the most successful campaign that we did on Harpic, and I think if you guys are familiar with Cannes Advertising Festival, we won the first bronze Cannes in 2017 for that particular campaign, is we realized that one of the most trigger points, the biggest trigger point in rural, which is around status symbol, right? We did a campaign which was called, Tarakki ki nishani ye nahi hai jani, which is like the real marker of progress is not a smartphone, not a bike, is just to have a toilet, a clean toilet in your home. Because if you're going out there defecating in front of everyone, that's not really a showcase of a progressive bit. So those insights. When I have to sell Harpic, I mean, there's a little bit of a guest resonance here when there are people coming in and walking into your toilet, and you don't want to be ashamed. You just want your toilets to look as swanky, etc. in front of them. So those insights are far better than there. So you have to nuance it, and then of course your ability to identify digital signals and target them is one thing, but really being choiceful and knowing what you're going to communicate to them at that particular moment is equally important, and saying the right thing always helps. So customizing to that particular audience is really important.
Okay, so my question is, so during COVID, there was a lot of demand for hygiene products, say hand washes or disinfectant liquids, or among other things. It's just said during that time, people started using other brands as well, right? Because there was a lot of new brands that came to the market. And after this entire thing passed away, got over, how was Reckitt able to get those customers back? Because that would have been a huge challenge for you, right? Because people started using other products, became familiar with them. So how did you go about it?
No, I think let me answer this in stages, right? I mean, the first priority when kind of COVID came in, of course, our portfolio was absolutely thrown into action because as Dettol, again, expanding into multiple segments, right, from antiseptic liquid to soaps to everything, sanitizers for that particular matter, was critical. I think at first stage, the first thing we really wanted to do was secure the inventory and production and supply for India, right? So at that stage, I think the first priority was not anything else. I think we knew that our our brand would come alive in its mission is if we are able to kind of double or triple our production as soon as possible. Make sure even in this tremendous period of hardship, even for the plant, operators, the factory workers, the supply chain, logistics people, etc. I think so that became the number one priority, and I'm very happy to say, as Reckitt India, we did a phenomenal job in just making sure that our products were in market in spite of very tough conditions, and we actually pulled up a production to actually service a bit more. What really, and then answering the question a bit from a category framework perspective, what it does is like, at any point of time, there is a level of hygiene consciousness. The consumer, again, there's beauty, there's moisturization, there is freshness, then there is disinfection, right? And then in disinfection, you have the Dettol's and the Lifebuoys of the world. At any point of time, people made choices about what really goes on their skin, right? Invariably, I think disinfection ended up being only 10% of those choices. 10 to maybe 16% if I include my competitor as well. So somewhere around that from a soaps perspective, and similarly on other categories. Sanitizer as a category was literally non-existent, was very, very small, very urban elite, if I may say so, right? And then also was very child-led, right? Sanitizer used to be kept by a mom to really disinfect the hands of the children, largely that. All these categories got disrupted. Your consumer, and during COVID, if there was a soap you would like to use, it ended up being a bit more of disinfectant soap. If there was a hand wash behavior that you had, it actually, maybe you were washing hands, just reflect back. I mean, all of you are COVID era, so you may be hand washing 10 times more than what you were today. Touching everything, you were washing your hand, right? The level of concern around germs was on an all-time high, right? So what it has done is, what it did was like the germ concern that people had, which is the reason as to why people buy a disinfectant product, actually moved from here to here. And as a result, of course, Dettol and other products came into action. This was also a time for, because there was so much at stake, even from consumers' health perspective, that all the other companies also felt it prudent to actually come in at that particular time. Especially, a lot of alcohol manufacturers actually who were sitting on alcohol actually turned into making sanitizers and stuff. We just made it, really, really beneficial for consumers to have a larger pool of supply, because there was no one particular brand or company that was able to service and fulfill the entire demand. So that democratization of the category happens. And once COVID's kind of gone, I think the concern's low, but of course it parks itself higher than where we were. At 2019, we might be believing that we are the most invincible race and species to exist. I think it really brought the vulnerability of humankind into picture, and thereby I don't think we're going to live in the fool's paradise anymore. We're going to be a bit more concerned, and with everything that we kind of experienced ever since, it challenged our behavior.
So, sort of one last question. I mean, these guys are really fresh into the campus and they have their entire B school journey ahead of them. What would be your last piece of advice that you would want to leave them with? I mean, they're going to get a lot of advice from a lot of people, but what would be your 2 cents for them?
See, I've spoken about a few things in the talk that I've had, things that I kind of value, right? I mean, I really advise, I mean, there are just 2 things that let me talk about. One, let me talk about from a mindset perspective. Be very, very open in your mindset. It's a very impressionist mind. You're very early on in your career. Have an idea of where you want to go. Don't define the path fully, right? So don't write it, oh, first year, second year, I'm going to do this, third year, I'm going to do this, fourth year, etc. No, I mean, this is where I want to kind of go. And let the journey kind of, because that's going to make your journey happy, as well as you are going to allow for newer experiences to also shape the path that you take. If you become very rigid, I think it just doesn't really, really help. So I think like a parrot, I'm going to say this for the entire time, keep the mindset open, have a goal in mind, but let the journey also dictate terms, let the experiences also have a role to play as far as, where the destination is. The second thing I think is an advice from the corporate world I would give you. I mean, and a bit more candidly, I think I've looked at career from lenses, career and jobs, career opportunities, and as to how I've shaped my career for the last 18 years from just the value lens. I think I say 2 things. One, I think as long as you're adding value to yourself, you could continue to do the same thing for longer. It's a bit of an answer of the question that was asked a bit before as well. As long as you're adding value, you're learning something new, you think that, yeah, this is something that I'm, in the last 6 months, I've kind of learned new, etc. I think it's there. The second matrix is if you're being valued in the organization, in the work that you're doing, also lends itself well, right? So this is the value equation. I've always looked at the what I'm doing currently through this lens only. It's just like, am I adding value to myself, and am I being valued for the work that I'm doing? If the answer to both the questions is yes, then I'm absolutely over the moon. That basically means this is your North Star and this is what you would want to do for the longest time. If answer to any of this is, one is yes and the other is no, you need to find a way to kind of refine it and get better at, or get the answers for yourself. If the answer to both is no, then that's the wrong profession, the wrong job, etc. that you are in.
Saurabh, this has been really stunning. Thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. I'm sure the students must have learned a lot from the conversation. I for sure did learn a lot of new things. So thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. And yeah.
No, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Like I said, I mean, I think thanks a lot to you guys for asking a lot of questions. Otherwise, it was very easy for me to kind of just come in and kind of go in, and my energy levels could have drooped in a bit. But of course, I mean, I've really found the audience very engaging. I think you've been very inquisitive. Again, like I said, keep this inquisitiveness on. I think that's what's really there, because once you're out there, I think the paths will shape itself. But I think next 2 years, I think this is not going to come in. This is possibly the last time you guys are on the campus, right? I mean, like I was saying, I mean, the last time I was here, I was like flinging my the hat, etc. and stuff, and I was just, that's it. I mean, and then maybe 18 years later, you will be lecturing in some institute, maybe earlier. I mean, why 18 years? But that's what it is. I mean, I've enjoyed every bit of it, and thank you for your questions, this engagement, and I'm sure I'll look forward to welcoming some of you in a few years at Reckitt as well. So best wishes to you.